K-square theory, yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be like a little bit of case overview, but we should be fine. Yep. Yeah, there's a few things. Just let me You all ready? Judge?
Yes.
All right.
They can see that we can transcend the metaphysical institution of death and suffering. This is pretty problematic for them because these are the base stones of security. What we're saying is that when we no longer fear things like death or suffering, we have nothing to securitize against, which we're going to win that security is the root cause, which probably means that we both know Link and solve the critiques, but also means that we're the only team who actually does get to the root cause. We asked them about the root cause of queer theory, of heteronormativity, and we asked them about the root cause of capitalism, but they can only say it's economic rationality or give a few examples. But what we're saying is that those two things are inherently securitized ideas, which means if we resolve the reason for security, probably means that we resolve the critiques better than they do themselves, but they can see that the root cause is fear, which means that our role of the ballot should hold who best performatively and methodologically, who best performs the methodology to disrupt a culture of fear. That's a reason for our role about it, because it gets to the actual heart of the question rather than just scratching the surface. Also, they read two roll of the ballots, which probably means that you're going to prefer our just one. When they can see that this, it means that there is no reason to vote negative either. We saw all of their offense. We know Link all of their offense on K's, and because they're inherently based on security. On the case proper. First, they say that what we're doing is extend. The role of the ballot, I already did that. They say that the way that we're going about our methodology is not Christ's message, but what we're saying is we're not forcing Christianity on everyone. We're not saying that you need to become a Christian at the end of the round, especially if you adopt it. What we're saying is that the politics formed by this are probably a pretty good idea. We think that fearing death is a bad idea. This is Austin and I's method of going about doing it, which is probably just a reason why we don't force our methodology on anyone. They make these February returns, but they can see the rhizomatic body card, which talks about the inclusiveness of the early Roman Church. Probably a reason why this is a pretty pragmatic example of why they did this. The early Roman churches also proved that we can that the affirmative can solve things like slavery because they spoke out and acted against things like that, but because they knew that those things were problematic and not affirmations of life. They were not looking towards the future. They were looking in the status quo and seeing the problems with that. Also, an affirmation of life in every instance probably solves the slave returns anyway, regardless of whether Jesus was silent on the issue. The thesis of the Bible, i.e. affirming life, probably proves that their arguments are real. Also, the only reason that we enslave people like that is because of security. We securitize that notion. That's the reason for things like racism and stuff like that, because we fear the other. They can see that we can deconstruct the notions of I and self, which is probably a reason why the other is solely related to the relation to the I. There is no such thing as the other if there is no I, which probably means that we're going to solve both of the critiques and that, because there is literally no such thing as the other, probably means that we go about solving that on the queer theory. First of all, extend the permutation, and we can do both. We think that regardless of, we think that we can do the thesis of the critique through the lens of the affirmative. Probably just means that that's true, but they say that the app is an ethical norm, but we're going to say that all ethical norms are not bad. It's probably a pretty good ethical norm that you shouldn't rape people. We think that that's probably a pretty good idea. We also think that the ethical norm of the 1ACI that you should not fear death is a pretty good idea too. They say that heteronormity is the root cause, but they give you literally no reasons as to why that's true. They just say that because of institutions, we break down securitized institutions and the self, which is probably just the reason why we can solve the root cause better than they can themselves. They say that the role of the ballot is to challenge heteronormativity. First of all, cross bias there means that I did the work above this, so why we solve the role of the ballot better than they do themselves. They say leeson and silence, but again, we address that on the link debate. First of all, the rhizomatic body, the churches, the rhizomatic body probably solves what we say that we can include all people, probably breaks down the thing, the institution to the other, and they make futurism links with affirming the status. We're affirming life in the status quo. We're not taking instances to securitize the future. If it is true that our act is an act of futurism and securitization, their alternative is just as much. Also, their link is only based on security. We solve security. They give you no reason as to why we specifically are securitized notion, which probably means that you are, which means that you are going to not give them that link. They said that the term doesn't solve, but that the deconstruction of the I and the other means that we probably solve, regardless of whether we get the perm or not, the affirmative solves queer theory better. On to cap. They say they give you no real reason as to why cap is the root cause, but they can see that capitalism, the root cause of capitalism and economic rationality is fear. That's our bell card. If you give us nothing else on the capitalism floor, you're still going to give us root cause. We say that this is an inherently securitized mindset. When you take steps to securitize against others by accumulating wealth, that's pretty problematic. And we agree they don't address any of the warrants in the bell card, which is really good on this question. We think it's probably pretty true that the root cause of things like capitalism, right, is securitization. They try to securitize against the fear of dying by accumulating, right? We resolve all of those questions, probably just the reason why we serve better. Also extend the perm. Permutation was the perm. Do the affirmative because we think that the permutation probably resolves the entirety of the offense and still resolves capitalism, which they do not, which they do not answer. We say that the gift of Christ was an economic means, which Christ calls us to give up our possessions. The early Roman Church is a pretty good example of this because because they gave up their possessions. They said that this group, the Jesus legalism and Old Testament debate here, what we're saying is that they're a misreading of the Old Testament. Jesus came to say that we no longer need to fear those laws, right? We should only affirm life. And they try to make this rhizomatic politics link. It's only about postmodern thought, not about us or our pre-modern institutions. Probably just the reason why you give us the perm and we solve it anyway. They don't go in.
Wait for. Yep.